This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast, a safe place to have a voice and talk about branding and all the reasons that bring a brand to be brilliantly branded. I am your host, Maria Lucia Romero, a woman empowering other women, and I am welcoming you to this journey of learning and inspiration to build awareness around the world of business and the world of brands. This is the Brilliantly Branded podcast. In this episode, my guest is a global executive with a passion for transformative leadership and diversity advocacy. She shared with us the wisdom she gained from her inspirational career, offering multiple lessons for leaders and change makers alike. She shared with us her secrets to become a natural leader and how to empowering teams, fostering diversity, and leaving a legacy that transcends titles. She is Marie Dzanis, an internationally acclaimed leader celebrated for her strategic expertise and commitment to diversity and inclusion. Through her career, Marie has held influential positions and spearheaded transformative initiatives, earning recognitions as a top executive and thought leader. From her experiences as CEO to her advocacy for diverse representation, Marie shares with us how she has been empowering teams, fostering inclusivity, and leaving a lasting legacy. So please grab a cup of coffee or tea and feel comfortable to listen to this episode to discover the keys to effective leadership, the importance of coaching and empowerment, and the impact of diversity in driving organizational success. So welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. Well, welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. As you will know, I am bringing as my guest powerful and inspirational women. And this time I found a woman that is so inspirational. She's an executive specialized in transformative change and investment management. As well, she is a woman that is a supporter. She is empowering other women as well across different initiatives. She is passionate about children's education and leadership. And she is clearly a role model, the kind of guest that I love to bring here to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. She have a lot of things to tell us related with ESG because she have been a leader and have been gaining some awards or different initiatives that she will give us all details. But let's say, Marie, I wanted to give you the welcome and invite you to introduce yourself because actually if I spoil all the content about you, I think is who better than you that really share with us an introduction about who you are in general. And welcome to the Brilliantly Branded podcast, Marie.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here and thrilled at the message and what you're pushing out to the industry. So, by way of introduction, I'm an industry executive. I just left a chief executive in asset management and role for EMEA. And I've had the privilege to run startup businesses inside of companies. I've built and rationalized different businesses across a global environment. I've had the privilege of hiring and working with amazing people throughout my tenure and had a very diverse career. I've been on the buy side, the sell side, and I even started cold calling to get my first job. And some of the themes that I think about is I've always taken calculated risks around what I've done in the business. And I was always willing to take on that assignment that nobody really wanted. So I've done slog work in security valuation, or I was always up for having the difficult conversation that nobody wanted to have, even in performance reviews, giving loving, honest feedback to somebody in the hopes that they can truly get better at what they did. So, with experience in multiple products and businesses, I've had the ability to do this on a global stage.
Yeah, well, Mari, when you are delivering all this description about who you are, it came to my mind many questions that I wanted to start asking you. As is true, having this difficult conversation is something that no many people are willing to actually realize how to address that topic. And part of the things that make me curious is with this experience that you have, mostly in leadering positions, what have been those spark moments that you really making you desire, okay, I'm going to do this step into the leadership roles and career?
Yes, I've always been curious about leadership. And some of it, I think, came from my father, who served in World War II. And throughout his life, he was an incredible leader, in my opinion, and had a very high standard for people charged with the responsibility of not only leading a company, but something that impacted families and shareholders. And I remember thinking differently in even the early 90s about leadership when I was in my own career. There was a time where fear and greed was the driver in the industry in financial services. And someone in management in passing said, "You'll never be an official manager until you've fired somebody who is a top producer." And that had an opposite effect on me. I was thinking, why would somebody do that? Why would I fire somebody when they invested revenue and success in our company? And why would I need to exert my ego over top of them to be labeled then as a manager? And so for me, what I thought was leadership was about empathy. It was about compassion, vulnerability. And, I've learned very quickly that you may not have all the answers, but a good leader will know the questions to ask. And so, I personally believe that leadership is more of a calling. That when you think about the spirit of bringing a team to be their best personal selves, that enabling them, that when it's their loss, you're willing to stand up and take the loss for them. But when it's their win, you're giving that win to them. That takes a very special skill set. And if you do it right, it takes a very a special person. And so I always had the knack of helping people understand some of the challenges around things like regulation and turn them into business enabling strategies. And I've always been pro people to make sure that people can be their best selves.
Well, when people feeling heard and understood, I think is different. Is leading by example as well, and bringing empathy is something key, because leader is not the one person that said, I am the leader here and I'm going to do this or that, but actually is leading by example, and understanding how that works with empathy is something that is a real role model to follow, seeing you how you have been leading in those positions and really succeed, having this beautiful relationship and building this trust in the people that you have been working with. But I think that all the things is starting with your roots, as you will explain with the example of your father, and as well these values and principles that actually you bring as a leader. So at the same time, challenges are already present. And talking about challenges in leadership, what have been the most impressive challenges that probably you have been experimented during your career?
Oh my gosh, where do I begin?
Yes, I know my question is a bit, is, but sometimes is learning about that, because sometimes is something that is so impactful for us. So some of those, if you can share with that, will be amazing.
Sure. We should have a colossal fail reel that we should do as a podcast. But one in particular stuck with me. And I think this goes to the theme of one, having friends that are good gut check and good sounding boards for you as a leader. And also your role as a leader. So I was in management at a branch, and I had just come into my position. I hadn't even been there a month. And we had juniors who were taking sales targets that they were trying to hit their monthly goal. So I had to come in, introduce myself, and find out how I can help them be in their business, be their achieve their goals. So I sat in front of a gentleman, I'll never forget this, named Brian. And after knowing him for just a couple days, he said, "You are the worst leader I've ever worked for. You don't inspire me. You don't help me with my goals. And that's the reason why for the past 2 weeks, I haven't achieved any of my targets." And I sat there with my clipboard and I said, Okay, thank you for telling me. Okay, and why is that, etc. And I wrote this down. And oh my God, afterwards, I called my girlfriend Bobby, who's this amazing leader. And I said to her, I go, "Oh, Bobby, I can't believe it. He said that, I don't give him books to read and I don't inspire him. And, he just hasn't felt like working since I've been there." And you know what she said to me? She goes, "Marie, you're not that powerful. You didn't wreck his life in 30 days." And so what was interesting was, I wasn't. That it was more around there was something else going on with him that as my seat in the role would need to understand so I can better help him. And so the role of the leader is really how somebody can take somebody who's self-motivated, who has that drive, that interest, and help just be the rudder on the ship to help them get to where they're going. And they've got to want it too. So the drive that they have, the desire to win, that's got to be there as well. And I really internalize that message of how I can help come along, support someone wherever they want it to be. And if they're not in the right role, that's okay too. But I'm just the rudder on the ship, help guiding them.
Yeah, of course. It's incredible story, especially because is this something that probably this person don't remember what you say, but remember how you make that person feel. That is something
Absolutely.
that I have been always saying because it's incredible. I mean, how people are sometimes doing things and you don't know how that people have been impactful because the things that you have been doing or saying. So, how important is as a part of the leadership process, really keep this in mind and always be careful about what you are saying, the way that you are saying. As you well, the empathy is something very important, and bring the people really remember you for many, many different things. That is, I think, the value that you can deliver. And continue with my curiosity about about your career and well, you have been in the CEO positions, you have been really working with amazing companies, very important companies, leading different initiatives as well. And actually, one of the things that we spoke before bringing you to the podcast, it was a beautiful example that I want you to share with everybody because I mean, this credit is for you. Now I am saying that to a lot of people, and he's talking about the elevator metaphor that you gave me the other day. If you can explain that and to the audience to give a little bit more context, because then they are not going to understand what is happening. I love that, and I think that the people can learn a lot about that. If you can share that with us, will be lovely.
Oh, sure. I'm a big believer in that because I'm a legacy person. And I do believe that the way to live forever is to have other people who worked under you be their best selves and go on and do something far better than you could ever achieve. That's really the only way, in my opinion, I think you can live forever. And one of the challenges is that leaders, once they get to a certain level, they really have to pay attention to, are they bringing others along? And so I actually stole this from my husband because he says this all the time. Once you get to a certain level of leadership, you need to send the elevator back down to go pick up people and raise them up. And as a leader, being active in coaching situations and evolving people on how understanding how they can be their best selves, how they can take their very specific gifts and skills and have that impact the organization in a powerful way. That really is somewhat the spirit of diversity. If you're getting the very best out of people that are contributing uniquely and they feel empowered to do so because of your stewardship, because of your guidance and your willingness to coach, that can forever have an impact not only on the organization to a positive way, but also to the people that you lead.
Wow. I love when you mention the word diversity because this is one of the topics that took my attention about your background. And actually, this is this commitment about diversity and inclusion that you have had during your career. And in fact, you have been chosen as one of the recipients of the top 50 executives allies awards in LGBT. So I think that this is something that I'm so curious to know more details about that. How did you get there? What was those things that you have been doing to make you really be part of that top 50 executives? Because it's remarkable. So yeah, I would love you to share that with us as well.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've been the global executive for LGBT Great. I'm very active in those meetings and in our community. I've been the EMEA executive sponsor of the Black Business Resource Council, the Latino Council, and I've done my level best to walk the talk about empowering people. And I've had very successful diversity practices across my global teams, executive mixes with teams, as well as broad population with male female ratios, as well as people of color, where we can measure it. In certain countries you can't, but I think it goes beyond that. I think it really is, do you believe in not only just about good hiring practices and having diverse teams that interview, it's about really understanding how to navigate an organization, hire diverse people and give them a voice and ensure that their perspective is being heard. So investing your time as a manager on how to coach to get the very best out of people and creating space for those who are maybe not as comfortable to talk, approaching with a curious mindset, always be learning are keys to success on the willingness to bring in the very best perspectives and have them cohesively contribute to your organization. And quite frankly, again, organizations are made up of people. And people have good days and bad days, good interactions and bad interactions, and really setting the standard for this is how we want our business to respectfully interact and making space for those, again, to encourage more contribution can only help. And also lean on HR partners and make sure that people are well educated as managers to make sure that they are not emulating the wrong messages, that they're really soliciting openness and positive feedback.
Yeah, this is it's delicate topic because sometimes I realize that in terms of how apply the best practices in diversity, equity, and inclusion are something quite difficult for companies and corporates or even individuals to know how to put in that in practice. So I think that what you share with us is really a very good point to keep in mind about how you can start implementing that and really bringing the companies to start generating that change. That I think is something that we as an individual can start doing. It's not just like well, others need to start doing it. It's something that we need to start to do it ourselves as well as soon as possible.
Agreed.
Yeah, correct. And part of the things that I see that you are expert in is talking about trends and opportunities. Actually, for leaders to look into make this impact as well in the coming years. I mean, you mentioned now diversity and inclusion, but what are those trends that really will make people to be part of the what is happening on the coming years?
So there's a couple things that I'm keeping my eye on, and they span investments and people and technology. So one is the trend on allocations are changing. And if you think that we have a more educated or retail investor through vehicles like communications online, educational opportunities online, people want access, including access to investing. So they're using more institutional products that have been reserved more, predominantly for institutional level. So these are things like ETFs, They're looking at things like cryptocurrency. There's a whole myriad of types of investments, including alternatives that they're now attractive to. There's allocations to active and passive selections and ESG strategies, particularly in Europe, that are table stakes for business. And there's new balances of risk and trade-offs, and even time lockups and yield. So I've been seeing in pensions their willingness to have lockups that would extend a little bit longer so they can get better yields and better returns on their assets. And there's also new vehicles that have been created in the pension space, like in Europe with LTIFs and LTAFs in the UK, to allow for different types of investments. So that's interesting. Number two is human capital. People are becoming more and more important in their roles and contribution. And with global uncertainty, the impact of having the right people in the right seats and the right level of talent is more important as firms race to scale in the industry and become a better client ambassador, especially in cost constrained times. So the people you have will matter. And the level of education and contribution will matter differently. And lastly, technology, very related to the human capital you need, the technology you need to have digitalization on asset management. And that could be anything from blockchain implementation to better scale and customize client experience. And we all know that in our personal life, we're used to this very high level of personal experience in our interaction. And I think investments are very much going in that way.
Well, and as well, one of the things that is now in the mouth of everybody is about AI and how we need to really, is embedded this in our daily lives in order to really make this transition. Because even it's not it's something that is not going to be part of the future or trends. It's now happening, but how we are really assuming that and using it in the best way possible, because now I think it's as very very things that are just in terms of going to be regulated. That is a good process that we are doing, but knowing how really embedded that in our lives will make a huge impact as well.
Yes, and there's an ethical component of that too. So that's the intersection of regulation, because regulators do not want any harm to markets. They don't want any harm to investors or their firms. And so, this is a really important next step of how we integrate capabilities with investments alongside to get the best outcomes.
Correct. Yeah, that is something that I think is a topic that concern to everyone, and we are probably needing more guidance about how we can get education about that and make the right use and yeah, succeed in the try to bring in all these technologies and all the things that will make us be a better human beings to set it in that way. Because as you well say, I mean, the human beings and behaviors and all the things, sometimes I have been realizing that companies or corporates that I have been working for sometimes are not keeping this in consideration in order to really understand that we have the good days and bad days, as you well said. So how really, for example, you that was, and this is just coming a little bit back in your position of leadership as a CEO of a company, how you can really handle these good and bad days that the people are having and not always delivering what they need to deliver, for example.
Yes. Well, organizations are made up of people. And the people are the ones that implement the strategy. So, probably one of the lessons that I've learned is that the culture of an organization eats strategy for breakfast. And I know that's a saying, but things like engagement count, buy-in count. Do people see the vision? Do people see how what they're doing every day more broadly connects to the clients that they serve? And I think that's an important aspect of it, because it's not just buying a service that somebody's doing a transactional task. The right spirit of what we're trying to do and having them understand how what they're doing every day can make a big difference to the clients that you serve or to the investment community or whatever the mission might be, the better a leader can tie that back to them for the people who are working on their team, the more engaged they'll be and the more ignited they'll be around what your true mission is. And I'm a big believer that that is the responsibility of the CEO ultimately and the executive management team to bring that down into the organization, to bring everyone along on that journey.
Yeah, organizations are a reflection of the heads of the company, and that have been happen all the time. And you can see how the teams are going around, and you can see the leaders, and then you say, "Ah, now I can understand what this is coming from." you know and yeah, it's crazy, but it is something that happens so frequently. So I'm happy to find people like you that are delivering this kind of leadership that is for me, that you born with in certain way, because I think that leaders are made in certain many different ways, but as well you need to have this ingredient coming from who you are and how you was raised. And well, this is what is I wanted to ask you, just to start, even to wrap up, is what are your things right now, that you are the projects that you are working right now, that you have been really after giving this shift as a CEO and starting a different path of life now, if you want to share with that, where are you now, where are you going, what are your plans?
Well, I'm working through that right now. I've had a wonderful 32-year career, and I'm having some very interesting conversations on opportunities and more to come on that.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. And part of a personal life, do you have any mantra or any things that you can advise to our listeners in order to, is having this career that you have had, and you are continue working on it as well. This is doesn't mean that it's finished. I am not wanted to say that, of course. But the point is, what the people can learn about that experience that you have had.
I would say one of the many lessons that I've learned, and I'm still actively learning today, is that your own personal style with professional respect can be one of the most powerful tools that you have. And I've learned the hard way of trying to fit in places or over adapt to a culture. And the reality is that the firm hired you for you. Well, people change positions and firms change strategies. And you need to know the strategy and be able to align with it and execute on it. But for your contribution, delivering what your unique skill sets are, that is paramount. And they hired you because they got to know you and they liked what they were hiring. So to be you, to have an understanding for yourself on your moments of interaction with people that create influence. That's the time when you're in the room speaking with someone and you're getting head nods, or people are like, that's really interesting. That moment, pay attention to those moments because that's when you're in your zone. And the more you can harness that for yourself to understand when you're in your zone and when you're stepping into your power, those talents and those gifts can serve you so well. And just learn to keep yourself in that zone. There's a saying, I don't know if it was attributed to Aristotle, but where your talents and needs of the world cross, that lies your vocation. Spend the time investing in yourself. Do the work to understand where you're at your greatest strengths and be the best you to get the outcome you want and get paid for it.
This is a very wise advice. Thank you for sharing. And this is basically finding this son of genius that actually is so important, because it's the only one tool that you can really bring him back, because only you know who you are. I mean, you only have the responsibility with yourself. Is yourself in that way, and actually investing in ourselves, as you well said, is giving us the opportunity to invest in knowing ourselves better. So well, Mari, thank you for being here. Thank you for having this conversation, for sharing your experience, and this way to be, this high energy, this way to deliver with empathy that I think is part of the reasons why the world are having those people that are making better than others. So thank you very much for being here, Mari. If the people want to contacting you, well, they can contacting you.
On LinkedIn.
Okay, fantastic. So people can go and contacting you and having more things coming from you that is always reflected in value. Thank you very much, Mari, for being here. And I hope to have another conversation with you soon.
That was so much fun. Thank you.
We hope you have been inspired by this content and join us for future episodes of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. We will continue exploring the power of branding and the stories behind successful brands. And remember, if you know a woman who has built a successful brand with a unique approach and a story to share, please refer them to our podcast. We would love to learn from their experiences and share their story with our listeners. Stay tuned for more episodes of Brilliantly Branded, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel for more branding insights and women empowerment. Until the next episode, ciao ciao.